Hi there, welcome to Conversations, where we seek to advance your leader and team excellence by discussing relevant topics that impact today's organizations. Welcome to the show. Hey there, leader, and welcome back to part 2 of our Ask Anything Roundtable series with my guests, Dr. Diane Wyatter and Dr. Anthony Perdue. Today we'll be discussing how to help an disorganized and unprepared leader, as well as unpack some advice for the startup entrepreneur on today's Conversations for Leaders and Teams. This leader is a member of a department and asks, how do I help our group that has a disorganized, unprepared leader? That is not uncommon. That just because you're in a leadership role doesn't mean that you're going to be prepared or disorganized. And maybe that person has a ranger.
Maybe they took the same assessment you did.
But it is that perception. So it goes, to you, Dr. Perdue, about, how are we aligning with how we're being perceived? And then, my first thought about that is this leader used, how do I help our group? And, my first thinking is it a group or is it a team? And as a team, do you have a common goal? And if you are a team, psychological safety is so important. It's important with, individuals in a coaching session. It's important with organizations. It's important for teams, to be able to have that vulnerability to have conversations around what you're experiencing with your leader. And so, when I think about that, it's is this person open to having a conversation? Has that psychological safety, which oftentimes goes by the wayside because people don't think they need it. But it is truly part of being an efficient, effective, and well-producing team. So I'd love to get your thoughts about having an unprepared, disorganized leader and how somebody can help with that.
The first being, and we've talked about personality, right? And others that we may put on ourselves, but it's not fair to put on others. So one of the first questions I would ask is it something about the person who's asking the question, about their preferences or expectations of a level of detail and organization that they may be used to, that they're imposing on not only that leader, but also perhaps the group, right? So that would be part of the question is really around self-discovery first, to see how that person felt about the question they were asking. Secondly, I would ask them if the leader's even aware of themselves. So really focusing on this awareness first to see if it's something that the leader is even that even recognizes as an issue, because they may be thinking, you know what, I'm the leader of this group. This group runs very well. It may not be organized to the degree that you'd like it, but it's organized to the degree that gives us enough flexibility and adaptability to be nimble, especially in a time like this where the organization is calling us on us to be flexible and adaptable. So I think it would start with an awareness of and an assessment of the question itself, because it may be an assumption to some degree based upon a level of expectations. If it is the case, let's say there are deficiencies in the organization of the leader, where it actually is causing challenges. There's this term called meritocracy, and it's used in context of leadership, where you can lead based upon your abilities. And so if you are a strong organizer or someone that has a gift of organization, maybe it's your ability and it's your time to step up to say, hey, I'd love to help and to serve you. And it's a term called servant leadership that's to me one of the most powerful forms of leadership. And I imagine we can talk a little bit more about that. But really serving your group and serving your leader in your strength, in your ability to organize. So I would recommend that you really dig into that and see if that's something that you can do to help and to serve, if that's in fact an issue once you do some soul searching.
Yeah, it's been my experience that leaders of organizations, groups, teams, they often feel like they can't step up and in, or they can't ask the question, how can I serve you? How can, if they're thinking that leader is leader and the leader is the end all be all, that is false. Because we are all, if there is a common goal, a common mission, a common vision, then we should be stepping in and serving, regardless of that rank or hierarchy where a leader falls. And Dr. Wider, you talked all about expectations, in your show with me, and so I'd love to hear maybe some of your thoughts around, a disorganized leader, unprepared leader, and perhaps how that person could be served.
Yeah, I think the first thing is that, just as we were talking about, really understanding what's going on. I mean, if I'm aware and I'm dissatisfied, gosh, this is an old management concept of whose ox is gored, who has the power to actually make the change. And oftentimes the person, who has the motivation to make the change isn't necessarily the one who has the power to make the change. However, I would say that first, there's more and more research that's coming out about this follower-leader relationship, where it's a partnership and how integrated and integral each one is to the other. So just as Dr. Perdue was talking about the expectations, like I might have an expectation that a leader function in a particular way, what's that psychological agreement? What's the actual agreement? What's the understanding about how that works? That leader very well may be functioning in a strength which is completely aggravating to that individual. And so now we back up even further, going to, is this a group or a team, and what are we trying to accomplish? And is this really a hindrance into what's trying to be, what the goals are and what the organization's trying to accomplish, or is it actually a strength in some other area because of what's happening, and it just happens to be a real irritant to this individual? So, and not to say that the leader shouldn't make changes or adjust, but really understanding where that root comes from of it in the situation, and really, again, acknowledging that you can have that relationship possibly of being able to speak into that or ask the questions. I think that we are learning more as followers that it's okay to ask questions, that I need to really be able to step in and take a risk. If you're so uncomfortable that it's irritating you, and maybe even creating a rift, at least in your relationship with that leader, then it certainly needs to be addressed. And approaching them with a question, or approaching them with, how can I serve you, is going to help the situation, definitely. It may not be the fastest result, so to speak, but it can go to that. And it's interesting because we're talking about this whole area of awareness, which, is it, and I ask this question a lot, is it awareness that creates the desire to change, or is it the desire to change that creates awareness?
Wow.
And that's one of my head questions. So,
yes.
But anyway, when you're looking at it, so you have this individual who's dissatisfied and obviously wants some change. I think asking those questions, how can I serve you? What is it that you need of me? And really hearing what the leader might need. And it may have nothing to do with what you would like it to have something to do with. But if you really want to serve that leader, then being in a place of following through with what their request is of you will help even just your relationship and building trust.
Yes. Building trust, so important. Yes. All right, that was great. Thank you. We have our next question that is, hold on a second. I guess my other papers are on the printer. Let me look over here.
It's your show. Take your time.
That's right. Okay, our next.
You need a producer.
That's right. I do. Let's see. So our next two questions is from an entrepreneur who is asking how to develop business and/or consulting models. So that's the first question. We can answer them individually or together. So how does this entrepreneur develop business or consulting models? And then how or when should somebody create products from their services? Yeah.
Wow.
And I think these are questions that, entrepreneurs, especially, they struggle with, what order do we do things in? Are we just going on, maybe what others are doing? Do we look at, again, our strengths and where we're strong in and what we can provide? And, so this is, a great question for somebody who is just, um, and from what they wrote, I feel like they're just starting.
Yeah.
And that's a space that that I think we should spend some time and give some direction here.
Well, I would say a couple things, and I would start with perhaps leveraging some models to eventually get to a point where you can create models. So one of the first things is, and I imagine this person or they have a business plan. When I've done business coaching as well, I'm actually a certified business coach. I've had my clients use what's called a lean canvas, and it's a one pager of your business plan. It's why you are, what's your mission, and who are your target clients. What's your short-term goals? What are your products and services, and then from a financial perspective, what is it going to cost to be able to produce this? But in doing the lean canvas, part of what you want to be able to do, and Kelly, you alluded to this, is how do you prioritize because if you're only one person or two people, you have limited resources, limited time, limited money. So so coming up with a strategy, and I think really being able to if you know your purpose or mission, your values and your vision, where you want to take the company, being able to set medium-term goals, let's say a year, where you want to go. And then I would leverage tools such as the SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, as well as something called SOAR, which is SOAR, which is strengths, opportunities, aspirations, and results. And with that, you can get more granular about where you're trying to go specifically. So you can say, a year from now, I want to have these measurable goals in whatever business you have, whether it be number of customers, whether it be number of products sold, books sold, whatever that product is. And so part of that, once you understand the measurable result you want, then it's about creating a strategy on how to get there. And strategy is the art in a lot of ways of saying no, or saying no to everything that looks good. So when it comes to focusing, I think the big word is, focus. I would say, depending on where you are with your SWOT analysis, what your strengths and weaknesses, opportunities are, and potential threats, and your results, then you can focus on those things that are going to give you the biggest return for the lowest investment risk or time. And that's going to be your quick hits. The biggest return for the lowest results, lowest risks, time, and investment. And I would focus on what those are, and then figure out a plan on how you can break those things up into milestones to be able to move forward in launching the business. Yeah.
Yeah, because there is risk. Entrepreneurship entrepreneurship is full of risks, and you need to be smart, especially when you're starting out, right?
Mhm. And I would add to that just a little bit. First, that's fantastic. I mean, that's such a just thinking that way can help somebody to frame and come out of the confusion a little bit and come out of the weight of what's happening. I do think that it's important for folks to have processes. And a lot of times people don't, a lot of times, especially, consultants who may function alone or function in a small group aren't always aware of their own processes. And it is important to have those business processes in place. What are you doing first, next, et cetera, et cetera. And a key to that is this whole pipeline. I work with folks a lot of times on business plans and business plan development. And one of the things that they don't even put into their schema is the pipeline. First of all, where are you getting clients from? How are you moving them along the pipeline of services or products that you have, and who's managing that part of the process? So when you're a small business, you're the one you're delivering the product, you're delivering the service, but you also have to be the one, or maybe your partner, in managing the process of the pipeline and knowing where somebody is along that pipeline. How are you getting them into the pipeline? And we talk about that in terms of marketing, but that's one of the things to really think about when you're talking about your own business. There's a lot of sayings with consultants that, it's kind of feast or famine. Like you're so busy working on the project with this client that you forget that you need a client after this client. And when you have a small business, that can be difficult because you're focusing your resources onto one individual. So when you have a process, who's where, how are you managing or co-managing that process for yourselves?
And I think it's important for people who are journeying on this road that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are times when, yes, you can be like, Dr. Perdue and coming up with, amazing assessments because, he's talented in that way and he knows how to do it, and he's seen that it's worked. But there are times when we can lean into things that are already in place. You can look at people who have gone before you. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to contact a coach or somebody who's gone before you, a consultant who has done things. There are several services out there, small business associations, different area, the Chamber of Commerce, networking with people and really getting yourself educated. I use YouTube for a lot of different things. If I need to know something, I want to hear, and that's the learner in me. I want to be listening. I want to be tuning into what people have done. I want to be, assessing, does this align with what my needs are or what I am looking for? That business plan that I have, does it fit into it? And so I think that when you are on that cusp of making or turning a hobby into an actual business, there's a lot of things that you can do that are without cost, meaning money, financial cost. And there are some things that, yes, indeed, that you do need to, spend some money on to be able to educate yourself or to be able to brainstorm with somebody who has gone before you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was
love
going
all
to add
that.
to that, I do too. And as you were talking, it's really kind of deciding which layers do you want to pay for,
Mm-hmm.
and that type of thing. But I do think there are a lot of free services out there. And even with business plans, again, when I work with a client and developing a business plan, I pull a template down. When I'm directing students, I have them go to templates. Or a lot of times, and answer the questions. I mean, the SBA really for a business plan has a great question series, and that when you press yourself through the questions, which you're the only one who can answer them. And this is one of the things that I do think is important. I've actually had people come to me and say, will you write my business plan? Here, I'll pay you. I say, well, it's an interactive process. You know, I need your time. Well, I'm paying you because I don't have time. Well, then I can't do that for you. I can't be the one. If it's your business, you're the one that needs to be involved in that part of the process. And I really, you know, if you're going to pay me, I'll write my own business plan. But, you know, it's I can't write your business plan without you. And that's part of the key. But as you said, the SBA is there. Many of the big metropolitan areas also have a specific branch for women's business, women's business. So they have a division of the small business that is for women in business. So if that's where you are, that's a place I would really lean into a little bit as well. And sometimes when you're near universities, they may have incubators or they may have business centers that will assist you with that. So there's some resources that could be available without cost as you set a foundation. And then as you want to build, you can invest a little bit more. But this is a great place for a coach. You know, the coach can help you in understanding you and assisting you with accomplishing your goals, even your own leadership development goals. I mean, one of the things that I think about in this whole thing are two principles I learned at McDonald's. And one is staff to the level that you want to grow. And that was a huge principle. It was a really hard thing for people to understand. Like, staffing to the level you want to grow really means you're going to be losing money for a little while you bring that, while you know, create the business up to that staffing. And it wasn't huge. It would be incremental. You know, you'd have these goals that hit that goal, move up, hit that goal, move up. The other one is to get your own house in order before you invite business in. Boy, isn't that an interesting principle? But that was a McDonald's. It's written kind of in the, when you're looking at business growth, it's one of those things, like, are the things in your own house in order? Do you have your processes in place? Do you have enough employees? Do you have your systems down? So to what this person's asking, do you know what those systems are? Have you developed them for yourself? And do you have them in place? So for us as coaches and consultants, do we have our welcome packets? Do we have our letters that we might be using that just might need to be tweaked? So when this person's asking this question about what is, you know, do they have those processes in place, and do they have their products developed to the point that they can, you know, sell them? And do they have a supply? If they're going to sell them, are they going to run out? I mean, you know, so anyway, enough of that, but it's looking at the processes, looking at that for yourself. And maybe that's where you need the help as to, how am I going to do this? What does this look like? What's it going to look like if a client comes to me for a business or comes to me for a product? How am I going to walk through this with them? What's them? What's me? What's us? So I think that getting your house in order and understanding that piece is imperative, but then understanding yourself and that leader role that you have in the process, that part of your own development. And it's a great place for a coach. Even if you're going to get other services free, having a coach help you with you is huge, especially in these moments. Matter of fact, I just had an individual I'm aware of who built a business plan and was talking about, as they get it off the ground, I said, I can't encourage you enough to go get a coach for your.
Just to tag on to that is to know who are you serving, because how can we develop, our organization? How can we develop services? How can we develop, products for, are we just going to do it? I'll say willy-nilly. Because so many times, that's how people operate. But if you're going to be strategic, if you have that strategic mindset, it's like, understand who is your audience? Who are you serving? And then, who are you as a person? Because we bring ourselves into our business. We are our business. And so, who are we? What are we capable of? Who are we serving? All those questions have to come and be answered before we step into actually operations, if you will, of our business. And sometimes that's done um, by default or design. And I prefer to do things by design if I'm able to. And, all the things that you, Dr. Perdue, said, as well as you, Dr. Wyatt, are all, feeding into what we need to do. There's all this pre-work before we get to the work. And I think allowing yourself permission to just do that pre-work is important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and this is a plug here, but it's true. Like, this is a great space for even just a Clifton team assessment to understand the strengths of your team as you're getting started, to see how they function and what each one, really how they function best and what each one brings to the table. So that's
great information. That's all the time we have for today's conversation. Tune in next time for more on the Roundtable series, where we're answering your questions with Dr. Diane Wyatt and Dr. Anthony Perdue. Until next time, this is Dr. Kelly Whalen. Keep doing great things, because our world needs leaders like you.